That first leap into love after ending a chapter. Yeah, let me tell you, it wasn't a gentle dive. It was a cannonball splashing through a little bit of heartache, hope, and a whole lot of lessons. It was a wild mess. Let's get into it. Oh, welcome to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. I am so happy you're here. I'm ready to tell a story of my first time being in a relationship post-divorce. And I definitely kept it quiet because I'm an open book, but it's like I'm one of those people that I can share a lot, but you probably really know nothing about me. It just depends on the circumstances. And it was hard to keep it from y'all because I don't know, if you listen all the time, I feel like you care about my life. And I feel like now it's been enough time to kind of tell the story, and maybe you guys can relate to that feeling of starting over after being with someone for so long. And it was truly unexpected. And I think as I tell you the story, maybe we can all just reflect on how wild life is and how it presents to you so many different things. So let's get into it. So, how I met this person. Weirdly and wildly, if you've been following along on my journey and I talk about the Knoxville guy that I spent time with in right after my divorce in that December, or when my right before my divorce was getting finalized, the Knoxville guy. Well, you won't believe it, but on that same trip to Knoxville in 2022, there was just one period of time with that Knoxville guy where he had plans. He had to go ice skating with his niece. And in that small window of time, I was like, yeah, of course, like do your thing. Like I've never been to Knoxville. I'll be out and about. I end up at this soccer taco downtown Knoxville. I was like, they probably have tequila. Let's roll. I go there and I end up talking to these people at the bar, and we're having a good time. And enter, I'm gonna call him Knoxville point two. Knoxville point two is there. And we're talking, and he had recently been divorced too. So his divorce was finalized earlier that year, while mine was a month away from being finalized. Didn't know at the time, and so we started talking divorce, and it wasn't that long, but he asked for my number, and I was like, sure. And I had been asking him, like, I'm thinking about moving here. And he was originally from Chattanooga, but lived in Knoxville. And so I was debating between like Chattanooga, Knoxville, or Nashville at the time. And he was like, I would say Chat, but because I live in Knoxville. And obviously we know how that story unfolded. I ended up in Nashville, but he got my number. And the very night that after all of that, I was going to dinner with Knoxville point one and the original Knoxville guy. And he texted me and said, lunch tomorrow. And I was like, I just didn't write back because I was with the Knoxville guy. And we didn't really text after that. Nothing happened. Nothing progressed. Well, fast forward to over a year later, this year when I started my podcast in March. If y'all remember, I started this without like having a huge following. And so one of my brilliant ideas was to mass text all the people that I had in my phone that I didn't really talk to and just send them the podcast link. I know, brilliant. Top tier marketing. And what happened there is after I sent the podcast link out to all these people, random phone numbers in my phone, the next day, Knoxville 2.0, writes me back to the podcast and said, I listened to all the episodes. When's the next one? And I was like, whoa. Like, he's already binged all the episodes. So I was like, okay, well, and obviously I haven't talked to this man again or even ever on the phone other than like literally the 10, 15 minutes we spoke at the soccer taco. And I say, oh, wow, well, I feel like you know a lot about me. I don't know anything about you. So, that's a little weird. And he was like, all right, well, I said, but the next episode's coming out tomorrow. He goes, well, I'll listen and maybe I'll give you a call. So I was like, okay. So the next day it releases, he listens, he ends up calling me and we talk for like 6 hours on the phone. And I don't even know who's wanting to yap with me that long after you just binged my whole podcast, but whatever. It was great. So we talk and he was like, hey, maybe I should come out to Nashville and see you. And at first I was like, yeah, but then I was like, I don't know, like this guy coming to my house. So then he was like, you know what? Why don't you come here? And I was like, I love Knoxville, of course. So I was like, okay, I'll go there. Which, okay, you have to remember me because I'm clearly in this delusional for the plot mindset because I met this man for like 10, 15 minutes. I don't have him on social media. I don't know anything else about him than what he's told me and the 10 minutes I've met him in person. So even me telling myself this story right now, I'm like, but it checks for where I was at in my mind and probably still today. So I'm like, okay. He's like, okay. So we planned for me to come out to Knoxville for the weekend. And I'm like telling my girl, I'm like, I told a couple of my girl friends out here, like, I'm going to Knoxville to see this guy that I met for like 10 minutes, like over a year ago that listened to my podcast. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I know. They're like, where does he live? I'm like, I don't know. They're like, well, where are you going to go? I'm like, I'll just head to Knoxville and then I'll figure it out. I'll text him. So I pack up my dog. He's letting my dog come. So already green flag there. And I head to Knoxville. Still don't know where I'm going. So I about get to the Buc-ee's and I'm like, I guess I better find out where I'm going, like his address. So I text him, hey, what's your address? He sends it to me. I'm getting off the phone with my friend and I say, like, I'm going into Buc-ee's. I'll call you in a little bit. I send her, this is the address. This is where I'll be. And so she calls me right back and I'm like, what the, and she's like, girl, did he tell you like lives on the lake? And I was like, no. And she's like, yeah, he's like right on the lake. I'm like, well, I actually loved that he didn't tell me that he lived on the lake because I don't know why, but I am not like super impressed by like overly impressing with things. I like to vibe the person. So I was like, that's cool. Who doesn't love a lake? So I get there. I get to his house. Now I know, it doesn't change anything for me in my mind. I'm just going for the plot, going for the adventure. So I get to his house, see him. I remember what he looked like in my head. Again, I was like, oh, yeah. And then we hang out. So we're just there. And he is like being the sweetest, most gentleman guy ever. And I'm just like here for it. And we end up just having a really good conversation. Like we talk all night. He cooks me dinner. And then in the morning, he's like, okay, we'll go to brunch. And I'm not like setting any expectations. I'm literally just like rolling with the flow. So in the morning, like it's pretty dark in his room. I wake up. I slept in. I didn't set an alarm. And I wake up and I walk out of the door and it's like a lake view. And I look out and he's literally like with his dog fishing on the dock. And I'm like, what is this life? Like, I love fishing. I love dogs. I love lakes. Why am I waking up and this is it? So I definitely slept in and I go down there. I'm like, what is this? He comes up. I'm in my PJs. He's already made coffee. Like it's a whole thing. And I'm like, he's like, it's a little late for brunch. Like, do you still want to go out or do you want me to make you something? I'm like, we can just have something here. Cause like granted, we're like with a lake view. Like, I don't even need to go anywhere. That's how I'm feeling. And so he's like, okay, like what would you want? And I was like, well, he's like, well, what would you get if you went to brunch? And I was like, I usually get an omelet or eggs Benedict. This man literally makes one of both. Eggs Benedict, who's even whipping that up? And an omelet. Both things. Grabs out the wine, chilled. Babe, sit. What is happening? What's happening right now? It's like, okay. And don't get me wrong, men are great and they've done lots of great things for me, but I was just like blown away. I've like met this guy like one day. And it was super, super cute. So needless to say, the whole weekend, like we went out on his boat, like he was just so cute. But I was like, I feel like this guy already loves me. And I know that sounds crazy, and I don't mean that conceitedly. I hadn't ever like, I'd kind of like been out with people, but I wasn't really like putting myself out there. Obviously, this isn't like me trying to be out there, trying to have a boyfriend of any sort, because that was not my mindset. And I'm just like, what the heck? Or like, maybe he's just like this to everybody. I don't know. So we spend the whole weekend together and it's great. And I end up like, I leave and I'm driving off. And I remember like he had went to work and I was leaving, and I think I left on a Monday. So I spent the whole weekend. And then his dog, like so cute, like got in my car and I was like, oh, I wish I could take her. She's so cute. Anyways, I leave. So then I remember talking to my friend and she's like, so like, what do you think? Like, what about this guy? And I'm like, yeah, he's great. But like, I don't know. Like, I just went there. And like, I didn't mean it rude, but I was just like, I don't know. Like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, he lives in Knoxville. He's like really, really nice. I don't know what I'm doing with that. Here we are. So I kind of thought at that point, like maybe I won't see him again. Like, I don't know. Like it was a weekend. It was what it was. It was like super duper amazing and fun. But like, I don't know. I live in Nashville. He lives in Knoxville. And we both like, I felt like we kind of bonded a little bit over our divorces, you know, like his situation was like much messier than mine. So that was like an interesting dynamic. And I just felt like, and I just didn't know. So fast forward, we keep spending time. Like he's very persistent. And honestly, I like that. I realized I really liked that he was just like all about me and just like he was just doing all these things. Like to the level of like, I love avocado toast for breakfast. And I told him that's normally what I'd eat. And when I would go see him at his house, because obviously, like, so I'd have to like come over for a few days or whatever. Like, I told him once I went to this place in Nashville that had put pickled beets on the avocado toast. And then he like bought the pickled beets. Like, I came there and he was like, oh, look what I got. Pickled beets because you like them on your avocado toast. I know. I didn't even ask for the pickled beets. I didn't even ask for them. You just provided them. Like, it was a dream. It was very much a dream. So, needless to say, I don't know what it was, but I let myself care a lot. And I'll be honest, it was like scary AF because I was like, my rational mind's like, I want to be like, of course, some guy could already like love me right away and like me so much because I'm so try to be kind to myself and be like my own hype woman and be like, yeah, of course he like. But then the logical part of me is like, he doesn't even know me that well. How does he even like me this much already? Is it really me, or is he just like escaping things in his own life? Like he's trying to like jump into something because he doesn't like how it feels to be without someone. because he had also been married like even way longer than me, but together around the same time as me and my ex-husband. And so he had been with one person like a constant in his life, thinking that that would be his life. And it was interesting because parts of talking to him about his divorce and how everything happened, I felt like I was almost talking to my ex-husband if he was dating a new. I know it was wild, but that's what it felt like. Like how shocked he must have been that that's not the life that he had anymore. And how it just changes up everything from dynamics in the family and your friendships and everything. You know, I moved away, so it made me get to move out of what that would feel like to share friends and do all those things. But he was like still really in the middle of all of that, which initially was a little bit like, I don't know if I want to call it like a red flag, but probably like an yellow one where it was just like I feel like it's got to be the right group of people to kind of manage that cuz it just depends. And there was just a lot of things I learned about myself during that time. I learned that it's so much easier to not get feelings. If you didn't know, if y'all didn't know, don't get feelings, don't get hurt. And that's been what I've been doing since my divorce because I think just thinking about hurting someone or feeling that hurt is so scary to me. So my little motto in my head to myself has been like, if you don't like me anymore, I never liked you. Like, and that might be kind of toxic. I know. I'm normally not that girl, but I'm just so like protective of my heart. I'm very scared. I'd rather just be like, let's just be friends. Like, we can just be homies. Like, I don't need to get in my feelings because I just I realize I still have to work through some fear. And interestingly enough, this man, Knoxville 2.0, told me that like when he first met me and we started hanging out, he was like, I felt like you were gonna friend zone me. Like I had to move quick because you're definitely the friend zone type, which is spot on. Spot on for me. I just would rather put a guy in the friend zone that I enjoy to be around because then I don't have to worry about what it is. And if I genuinely enjoy your company, I don't wanna lose you and I don't wanna make it weird. I don't want you to get feelings or I don't wanna hurt you and I don't want you to hurt me. And even saying that out loud right now, I realize that I still have some things to work through because I can't go into anything in life being afraid to get hurt. It's almost like how I preach, I can't be afraid to fail. We just have to go for it and just pick it up along the way. It's that same concept. It's like if we fail, we'll get back up and it'll be fine. I know it always works out for me. So even if I have to go through a little bit of heartache, I should just go for it because love's worth it. But it's hard after divorce or being with someone for so long and knowing it feels so raw, all those emotions. And until you're kind of scabbed over that wound, you're just a little bit hesitant to put yourself in that place again. So, in this time of me having this boyfriend, it was probably only, I don't even know, 3 weeks in, he was like, asked me to be his girlfriend, which again, I have no, I don't really know what the rules are now. The rules were totally different when I was with my ex. I didn't even know if there was rules then, but now everyone has a name for everything. There's all these rules. I didn't know what the rules, but he asked me to be his girlfriend, and I said yes. And it was weird because I'm like, I'm a girlfriend again, and I don't even remember how to be a girlfriend. I mean, I just knew how to be a wife, which was very different to like, you're not his wife, so it's different. And I'll say I learned a lot about like what I want to be, not only for me eventually being a wife again. And really, that relationship with him showed me that I do want to be a wife again. I do want to be married. And that was probably one of my favorite things about that relationship is it showed me that that's something that I want again, because just falling asleep next to him, because it kind of made it quicker. I think it moved faster because we were going back and forth. Like, he was staying here for a weekend. I stayed there even once for like a whole week. Like, we were, it's not like we just went to dinner. Like, it's about 3 hours and a time difference away in the same state. So it wasn't just like a convenient, like, let's go to dinner and I'll drive home. So we kind of spent like a substantial amount of time together those first few months. And it was I ended up meeting his dad, his stepmom, his brother, his sister. I did not want that. I said, that's too fast. And it was circumstantial that it happened. I'm not saying he pushed that on me, but it was just a lot. And then he's like, you still got to meet mom. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so much for me because I'm just so scared. And I was like, why? And I realized, and I didn't preface this, but this man was older than me, just a little. And I normally have not even in. It's been easier for me to just kind of be around guys that are younger than me, not only because are they just fun and carefree, but that makes the relationship feel kind of carefree and fun. And my therapist even said it's probably easier because you don't really think that it will become that serious. But with someone like him, it was like, oh, is it? So this is supposed to be it's not like I'm going to date someone for 3 years, 4 years and not even think I'd marry them. That's not really where I'm at anymore in life. So it just put pressure on to figure out if you liked him. But I know that really the pressure is just your own self. I don't need that pressure. I don't need to think like that. But in this time, in this moment in my life, even earlier this year, I hadn't worked through a lot of the things in my life as well. So I was just overly analyzing things, overly stressing, overly worrying about things. And that probably put a little bit of a burden on the relationship. But he was a trooper. But I think we both just, gosh, it's hard after you were married and you just were with someone for so long to just mesh lives. And it wasn't hard when we were together. I think it's just hard when you're in your head. It's hard when you're in anything is hard when you're in your head and you're like, how is this going to pan out? And you're trying to figure it out like you're supposed to have it figured out. No, just enjoy the ride, Heather. Enjoy the ride, y'all. But we're over here wait, how's this going to work out? What's going to happen? Am I going to I would stop that right now. That was a big lesson for me to shut a dang brain off and just enjoy the company. But when you start caring about someone a lot, I realized that sometimes that's easier said than done. I mean, it's already easier than said than done in general, but when you start caring about someone and you enjoy how it feels to be around them, you start worrying a little bit more what it would look like without him, or and it just we make it way more complicated than it needs to be. That's what I learned. A lot more complicated, didn't need to be. So, I mean, there's so much I could say about our time. We did a lot of things together in a short amount of time. And I still can't even believe that the reason I even met him was because I flew out to see original Knoxville guy in Knoxville after knowing him for one day. And now my next boyfriend is my first boyfriend post-divorce is because I did that. And the life just gives you those things. Like, when I talk about a wild mess, it's literally a wild mess. But like any good thing, there was things probably that happened that weren't really like that just made it not the right time for all that for me. I feel like sometimes if we don't work on ourselves and we don't give ourselves the opportunity to really heal from things and they keep coming up, it prevents people from being able to love you like they could. And I think there was just a lot of work that could have been done on both sides that I just thought, I don't think either of us know what we're doing. So I don't know if this makes sense. And something that I did learn in this as well that I have to just be okay with is that I'm just so much more calm, and I'm just a crier and a calm and a lover, and I'm not gonna get angry at you and, like, fight you and cause a scene and be a big deal, and some people are either used to that or want that more, and I can't be that girl, and so I think I'm happy about that, but I realize what that will be in my life. It will attract different people, or it will have certain men just maybe not think that there's passion because it's just a vibe instead of a toxic battle or a dramatized scenario every day. I do want, like, a calm, peaceful kinda love, but you gotta be hilarious. Like, you gotta be funny, like, obviously, because like, I need funny. But, like and I think I'm funny, although, like, I really am, but I'm not giving you guys all my humor yet. Like, I might do a comedy special one day. Never know. Okay, anyways, back to the story. But I'm just saying, I it's obviously ended now. And I had already planned to talk about this, and then, of course, you know, texts from your exes. But either way, the story isn't that serious, and it's still to be told. But for now, I learned a lot of things. It wasn't like, quote, unquote, "the love story" I expected, but it was exactly the chapter I needed to read. It just made me realize that where I needed to do work on myself, and we all have work on ourselves, but I think sometimes people say, like, in order for you to get in a relationship, you need to be healed. What I realized is I thought I had healed a lot of things, but I still wasn't looking for a relationship. Again, it just found me. But once I was in it, it showed me and shed light on things that I realized I needed to still work on, that I needed to get better at, if I want to be this wonderful wife again one day, then I need to fix some of the things that I didn't really notice before because it was just me, you know? So, all that to say is I'm excited for this new chapter. It's been great since. I'm not really giving timeline, but I will say, like, there's probably more stories around this person, Knoxville 2.0, and it's just good to have people in your life that can show you things you need to see. And so for that alone, I'm thankful. I will also get into, like, I don't wanna call it love bombing, but I realize, I'm, like, obsessed with music, so, of course, like, we always had to have music whenever we were around each other, and so, literally, I have so many stories. Like, we went to Zach Bryan together in Knoxville, which was the best time ever, and before I'll leave you with this, um, I was at a John Party concert by myself, in Knoxville, actually, like, a little like, probably 8 months before this. And I saw this couple and they were like like just together, so in love, blah, blah, blah. And I'm at the show by myself and I'm like, I want that one day. Two people at a concert, so happy, having the best time, like they're vibing, they're happy, they're just like, it's a whole vibe. And I remember thinking to myself, that's what I want. Fast forward, I go to Zach Bryan with this man. Oh my gosh, there's so many stories about this. But I go to Zach Bryan with this man in Knoxville, and kid you not, we're vibing at the concert. Like, he wasn't this huge Zach Bryan fan, but he knew him and he was listening to it. I was hyping it all up till the show. And we go, and he goes to, like, I don't remember, go to the bathroom or get us another beer or something. And there's a mom and like two daughters, like probably like early 20s and whatever, and the mom. And they like tap me and they're right behind us. And they're like, we want what y'all have. You guys are the cutest couple ever. Like, the way he looks at you is just so like, that's what we want. Da, 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 da. And it was like the cutest thing. Is this like the new Sappy podcast? Is this Sappy Heather? But what I'll say is it was the cutest freaking thing. And I was like, that's how I felt when I saw that couple at John Party. And now I'm that couple. It made my day. So all I have to say is that even if it's for a moment, even if someone's not there, reason, season, lifetime, you still get that feeling that you wanted. You wanted that feeling. For that concert, we were that couple that someone said, I want it to be like that. I want a guy to look at me like the way that he looks at you. So, yeah, I'll end it. You look like waves on a sunset, and I can crash on you all night. You look like wine in a truck bed, a little what I'm doing for the rest of my life. That song was always on repeat. So I guess we'll end up with Wind Up Missing You. Thanks so much for listening to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. You matter.